We've seen your questionnaire, and of course, we followed you closely on the school board. But I want to begin by asking a question I know was in the questionnaire. Why do you want to be in the legislature, and how can you better serve the people of Broward County from Tallahassee than what you do now?
So serving on the school board for the last 9 years, it has become very obvious to me that a lot of state laws are made on the state level. And then on the local level, you have to put policies in place to implement those laws. I just feel that having someone in Tallahassee that understands how schools work, the implementation of laws, that has a perspective from a community that's oftentimes not heard of, being African American and elderly, would give our community a better chance with me being at the table. When this seat became available, it was a very, very tough decision for me because I love the kids. I love what I do on the school board. But when I look at the fact that by 2030, we will have probably the largest senior population ever, I look at what's happening with traditional education. I look at what's happening with our democracy and voter suppression. I thought that I could go to Tallahassee and work to build relationships that at least offer a perspective that is a perspective of a common person, you know, from day to day. In my job at the Mental Development Corporation, I interact with people a lot. So I understand their needs, their concerns. I just think that right now we are at this place where, because we're in different parties, we don't talk. And we know that that's not in the best interest of our citizenry. So I just thought that I would offer myself for this seat, and the voters would give me an opportunity to serve them or not. So Steve, you're muted.
Thank you. I've got to tell you that as somebody who's in the Capitol every day, and I talk to members of the Broward delegation constantly, as you know, they are, I would say it's fair to say they're very frustrated. They're frustrated at losing elections. They're frustrated with the heavy-handed, top-down Republican leadership. They don't have the numbers to make a difference in most cases. And so I want to ask you, you know all these folks very well that you'd be serving with. Don't you feel their sense of frustration about Tallahassee?
I do, but I don't think we can expect things to change overnight. But I do have experience when you have a different perspective, having a conversation can offer a different perspective. For example, when the government under President Clinton did the 1996 Back to Work Act, well, we went from welfare to work, the Personal Responsibility at Work Act, I was a part of a group of former welfare moms that would go to Tallahassee and lobby. My person that I was assigned to was E. Clay Shaw. And once I was able to meet directly to him and explain to him that as a former welfare mom, if you took me off welfare and made me go to work, I was going to go to work in a low wage paying job. If you gave me those 2 years to go to school, either to a university or a technical school, I would have a trade or a degree that would better prepare me to earn the wages that I needed to earn to take care of the 2 or 3 kids I had. I agree that welfare should be something temporarily, but in conversating with him 3 or 4 times, he began to ask me more questions. And I was able to explain to him what happens when you are working in low wage paying jobs and you have to feed your babies. And he went to the Ways and Means Committee and started a pilot program like at Boston College for former welfare moms, and they put in the post-secondary component. But if I wasn't having that conversation with him as someone who had transitioned from addiction to needing welfare to then going back to college, he would not have had that perspective. So I was happy that I was able to talk with him and give him that perspective.
I just want to cut in here real quick. We are just now being joined by Terry Edden. Hi, Terry. We just got underway.
Terry Ann Williams Edden here, but I didn't know anything about your Sentinel meeting until now. So what I have to do, because I am an employee of the state attorney's office, I have to step out of the building. If you give me just a moment, I just got this link today.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you just give me a moment, let me walk out. Are you there? Hold on a moment. I need to walk out the building.
Yeah, as discussed, Dan, I did email to the same email address that we had for Hunter. So I'll mention that again. Dr. Osgood, let me also
received it. Hold on.
Yeah, Dr. Osgood, let me also introduce our editor-in-chief, Julie Anderson, who's joined us as well this afternoon.
Hold on.
Hi. Apologize, I'm late.
While we're waiting for Terry Edden there, Dr. Osgood, tell us again, what did you actually do for Congressman Clay Shaw?
Well, I was able to have a conversation with him. I was a part of a Welfare Made a Difference advocacy group. So I was able to have a conversation with him about the importance of moving people off welfare into school or technical training before them going to work. As they was looking to cut the welfare load, they was trying to find people's jobs. But if you're able to go to college or go to a technical school, then you are more marketable. You're better prepared to earn a job that you would make enough money to really care for your babies, rather than going into a job in a McDonald's or somewhere where you're working now, you're not getting welfare, but you still are not earning enough money to provide for your children. So having conversations with people across the aisle or people with a different perspective allows you to at least give voice or give them something to think about. I'm very intentional about talking and interacting with people that have the exact worldview and perspective that I have, because it allows you to think more critically and it gives you another perspective that you might not have already thought about.
Okay. Let me welcome Terry Edden to the conversation. Thanks for joining us very much. Terry, I'd like to ask you just to make a sort of an opening statement about why you're running for this office and what you offer the people of Broward County and the Florida Senate.
Well, to stand corrected, I'm rerunning for the state Senate seat, and you all know I've run before. I acquired about 18,005 votes last year. I'm going to ask you to forgive the noise in the back. Those are my investigators. Also, the reason that I am running for the district is because I'm 55 years old. All my life, I've had the opportunity of putting people in our elected offices that have not given back to the community what they should, and I think failed the people. I'm rerunning because I ran before. I'm just as qualified as anybody else. I've been in civil rights for over 30 years. I fought for fairness and justice for all. I fought against police brutality measures. And this entire, not just the district, but throughout the entire state. I worked in the Broward County School Board for many years. I've been in education for over 20 years, forming the first free reading programs in the inner city neighborhoods when the LCAT was a factor for us in being able to move forward. I worked in dropout prevention, also in truancy when we formed the first programs with Mount Olive and other churches around the globe to make sure our children, when they was in dropout or they had truancy issues, that was with Matt King Park, to make sure that they would be able to have affordable education outside of the office when they were either put out of the schools for a brief period of time. So I've done those things. I worked for the state of Florida in unemployment as adjudicator for the Department of Economic Opportunity and for other agencies. And I feel what I have to offer is what the people need. We've had people to advocate their seats, and then we've given them a chance to serve us. So it's time to bring in something new, not the same recycle bin. And I am just as qualified and equally capable of serving in the state house or any other house. And that is the reason why I'm running for the seat, revying for the seat. I just ran for it last year.
Tell us exactly what you do for the Broward State Attorney's Office.
Well, we normally don't tell you we work there. I put it this way, I'm in the legal industry. I worked in FTU, felony trial unit, where it's a different level of prosecution. I worked in SBU and the sexual battery unit dealing with elderly people. I'm currently working right now with the domestic violence unit, where we are dealing with our victims that have been abused with either their spouses or their children. I don't know what the back door is coming, I'm sorry. And that is what I do in this office. I set up the case filings to make sure the cases can be filed. I deal with our victims, our witnesses, as well as law enforcement when it comes to making decisions about whether or not we will file a case.
Okay. You know, I'm sure you're well aware, the Broward County School District is one of the largest, if not the largest employer in Broward County. Certainly they're the largest.
I work for them.
Yeah, I know. My question is, since your opponent is the chairman of the Broward County School Board, what kind of interaction have you had with the school district and how has it been?
Well, let me tell you who I am in the school district. I worked with the Reverend Jesse Jackson many years ago before the current person is on the board here. I worked with them in dealing with our starbursting of our students. I've interacted with every superintendent that has ever walked the face of the Broward County School Board, worked under Frank Prezzolello and others. And in interacting with the school system, I have also represented their teachers when they are unlawfully terminated to keep them employed. I have met with professional standards unit to be able to negotiate and mitigate those concerns to keep us from filing EEOCs and EEOC cases. And I have done both of those. I've also advocated for our students. I was the first person, and now you have this thing where you're protecting our students from being arrested. Well, that started with myself, Willie L. Lawson III, the late Willie L. Lawson III, former president of the North Broward County NAACP, as well as Ben Williams and Dr. Clint Wright. We formed that program with the state attorney's office as well as Lamberti when he was the sheriff to keep students from being arrested in our school system. So as an advocate for change, I've mitigated cases. I worked with the AFL-CIO along with Marilyn Swank, the late Marilyn Swank, to mitigate cases in arbitration when it came to educational employment as well as the civil employment of individuals. So those are the things that I have done. I also stood up against injustices in our school system when we have students in the inner city that did not have the same parity of those in the western neighborhoods. So those are things that I have done and I have championed and will continue to do, is to fight against anything that is unjust to our schools. We just had a meeting about the bond money that has failed us. We're still begging for a gate at Blanche Healy. We're still begging for ramps in schools that have buildings and roofs. So yes, I have been very active in that measure. We just had a meeting a couple of weeks ago where I think Nora Rupert was there and the acting superintendent. So as a civil rights leader, I have done those things in the school system.
Okay.
And abroad.
Thanks very much. Dr. Osgood, can you respond to that last comment about
Yes.
she's asserting that that bond money is slow to reach Blanche Ely and other schools?
Well, I'm a District 5 school board member, and we all know the bond. The Sun Sentinel has covered it very extensively. The bond has gotten out of the gate very slow. The district is working very aggressively to provide the bond program. When you think about $800 million and you think about addressing issues of 323 schools, having gone through it for the last 5 or 6 years and getting on the balcony and looking back in hindsight, you certainly learn a lot of lessons. When we got the bond money, we did not have a plan in place from an implementation perspective. We kind of went through a needs assessment. The district had not had a bond for like 50 years. So it's just a thought of, we knew that we didn't have enough money and that the state wasn't going to give it to us. So we wanted to go and ask the citizens for it. We did that. Initially, there was 34 people in that department that was terminated, and we started using project management companies to implement the bond. And some things have gone well and some things have not gone well. But I will tell you that Blanche Ely has gotten a new patio there at Blanche Ely. I know that there's plans to address the bus route and other integral things. Ms. Rupert, the district board member, is more knowledgeable of Blanche Ely than I am, but I can tell you that the district has worked to overcome this thing where people always talk about the East and West. And I will agree that that was something that really occurred in the past. When you look at buildings and school buildings, the buildings on the East are older buildings. So when you look at addressing those buildings, you're going to either tear them down or renovate them, but they're always going to look different unless you tear them down and rebuild than the buildings on the West. The board that's in place now has worked very, very aggressively and very, very intentionally to provide equity to the district, to all students. Simply think about this. Broward County School District is a county-wide school district. Many students do not go to school where they live. There are many kids from Parkland that are enrolled in the gifted program at Parkway. So you have a district where you have magnet programs where kids live in one area and they go to school in other areas. So
Right.
we've made an attempt to try to be equitable, to provide quality education for those students. My opponent talked about the dropout prevention program and the work she did. I wasn't there. I don't know the work she did. I know the promise agreement was signed in 2012, and all of the work that had been done to create that program happened before I came to the board. I've never once said that I started the promise program. I have been very intricately involved and studied the data of the promise program. And I commend anybody in any kind of way that's participated in the school system at any period in helping to change the lives or create a better world for our children.
Dr. Osgood, as the chairman of the school board, you personally, individually negotiated the severance package for former Superintendent Robert Runcie. There was criticism we definitely heard from readers. Some readers and some people in the community felt this was extremely grandiose, that he walked away with a package of more than $700,000. Why was that necessary?
Well, it was what the board had agreed to. A part of that, and I don't have it in front of me, a part of that was monies that he had earned or would earn from his contract. Another part of that was a retirement that the district had negotiated with him in advance of about $80,000. Another portion of it was a contract stipulation of a severance pay that would be paid out to him if there was a separation of agreement without termination. So if you go back to the documents of that negotiation, I followed the contract as it was laid out. The only thing that the board agreed to do that was not in the contract was to pay the $25,000 for the attorney fees, because that had been a practice of the board. So when I presented the item to the board, there was discussion, there was questions, and the board agreed to the package that was before them.
Okay, I want to open the floor to my two colleagues if they have any questions at this time.
Steve, I'll lead with the one about sovereign immunity. The package of damages that you've negotiated with the victims of the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is very impressive. I've not seen anything to explain how you get around the sovereign immunity law on that. Could you tell us, please?
Well, we had a policy that was about $300,000. The board thought very hard. The board has worked to try to navigate a very, very difficult and painful experience for those families and for this community. We know that there is no amount that could ever replace someone's kid. The whole conversation has been that the board never took accountability for anything. So as we was discussing with our lawyers, the possibility of what we could do if there was some type of compensation that we could offer, and then work with the parents to get additional compensation from the state, we were willing to do that. So the lawyers handled all of those negotiations, directed us, and we found the money from our general fund, which, you know, we made a decision, a conscious decision to do in the spirit of trying to, you know, have some level of accountability, be responsive to the loss of these families, and not just, you know, just say the law allows us to do this, but try to do something moral in the situation to, you know, help those families.
Well, I understand from what you're saying that your legal counsel has told you that you don't have to invoke sovereign immunity, that whether to seek that protection under the state law is optional. Is that a correct description of what you've been told?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask Martin, if you're done. I wanted to ask what both candidates think about the work that Perry Thurston has done. We asked you in your questionnaires to give the legislature a grade, but if you could particularly give a grade to Perry Thurston and tell us at least one major thing that you would have done differently than him, if there is any. And Dr. Osgood, since you just spoke, we'll start with Ms. Edden.
Well, Perry Thurston, I've been knowing Perry for years, and I've always tried to support him being in the legislature. But I don't believe in bashing him, but what I would say is every elected official that has represented, and I don't like the district as a whole, and I know people say the West and the East, but it's important because when you deal with people, they're concerned. They don't see those appropriation dollars that they say they've sent to this community. And this is a shout out from all those that are represented in that district on certain sides. And the reason I use those sides because I have to be perfectly honest with you. My children were zoned for MSD because they're from Parkland and Coral Springs. And when people are represented in those areas, even though we're all Democrats and you're working with a Republican group, you see where the monies are going. At least it appears that the monies are going in those areas. But then when you go in the inner city, and for example, it's not just Pompano Beach that I speak about because that's not the only place that I have represented. Morgan, in those areas, they are not set up where, for instance, if my daughter comes back home and she's a GYN and she wants to set something in a neighborhood, like my family, we have done, tried to set up a mental illness program, a building, as well as a healthcare unit in Pompano Beach and in Fort Lauderdale. And it's not easy to do. You don't have that relationship with the people. Perry Thurston, I can say personally, has not come back home to us in a sense where they can tell us what they've done. I went to a meeting at the Urban League last year when I began vying for the seat. Perry Thurston, along with the other legislators that came down, all they talked about is what they couldn't do with the Republicans. Well, you said you brought $1 million back for us to start businesses. You didn't tell other people. They did it on 6 Trump at the Urban League, where nobody else knew about those funds that came down so you can have those businesses partake in economic opportunity to help enhance their small businesses and or create them. Because I have created businesses. That's what I do. I do bylaws, I do articles of incorporation. I help people get started through my consulting business with Edden Consulting. So I say about Perry, I guess he did what he felt he can do. But in working with Republicans, that's all we hear. And this is what sets me apart because I know that I have the ability to mitigate, negotiate with all parties to get something done to bring back change to my district. I would like for the inner city neighborhoods to look like my western neighborhoods look. I would like the same opportunities that we have over there that they bring over here. And I'm not just a person that's speaking about one area because I've had the opportunity to live in Coral Springs. I've lived in Parkland. My husband has built those areas. So I understand what the makeup is. And when I was called back to the inner city, I was called by Ernestine Price and the late E. Pat Lockins, who is my relative, to come back and help them in these inner city neighborhoods. I've even worked with Roosevelt Walters in Fort Lauderdale regarding changes and the things that we need, even the recidivism of Black people, Black and white as a whole, going to jail. When they get out, they don't have anything to look forward to, so they're going to continue to be repeated offenders in my system because there's nothing there. And this is the same sentiment throughout across the board of the inner city, whether it's from Davie to Riviera, it's the same sentiment. And I feel that we have failed the people. We get in these positions, you want to be your careers instead of going there for the business of the people. And that is where I feel the legislators have failed us as a whole. And that would include Perry. I've had the same conversation with Patricia Williams, who is trying to get things done, but this is what they bring to their community. So to me, I guess, like I said, I'm not going to bash him. He's been there. People voted for him. They spoke. And the result, to me, has been a blank check. And I have not seen that. I have not seen the safeguards. I know he's giving some money to education and some other things, but it's bigger than just that. When you have people that are in dire straits, even with the COVID taking place, people have lost their jobs. The rent is high. They're dealing with the millages. They're dealing with the not having the, opportunities that they should. And then they always say, and this is what I do that's different than my opponent or anyone else that I know. I don't know what she does, but I'm going to say this. When people come out of jail, I have gotten people out of jail before they become processed. That's the respect I have in law enforcement. I can go to any building if someone has gotten arrested or about to be arrested, and I can mitigate that situation on the ground before they become a part of the system. I did expungements and sentence before I got into this system at the age of 18. And the suffrage in our communities in the inner city is quite different than those in the western neighborhoods. And I felt more can be done if they had utilized those systems and tried to get the right policies put in place to help the people in these districts. Thank you.
Dr. Osgood, you answered the same question, which again, the question was how do you think Perry Thurston did in the legislature? Is there one major area you would disagree with and do something a little different?
Well, it's always easy when people are not in public office for them to say what you're not doing. Any public official, in order to get something done, you're not alone. You have to have votes and you have to build teams. Perry served in both the House and the Senate. He has worked really hard, was very strong in trying to repeal Stand Your Ground, has been very involved with schools. I know personally that it was both Perry and Bobby DuBose that worked with me when I was so outraged that Black people were being disproportionately impacted by COVID, but we were not having COVID vaccine pop-up sites in our communities for easy access. It was Perry Thurston as senator and Bobby DuBose as House representative that got with Jared Moskowitz, and we all worked out to start those vaccination pop-ups at Mount Hermon Church. So there are some very good things that Perry has done personally, as well as many other elected officials. The one thing that I would try to do differently is to work more aggressively to build relationships across party lines. Just because you and I have a different party affiliation, it does not mean that I have to hate you or I can't listen at you. I think when you get elected, you represent your constituency. I've been on the school board for 9 years. When I first got elected, my district was a horseshoe that went from Davie to Copens, where all the Black people live. The third workshop on the school board was a redistricting workshop in which that boundary was changed so that the school board wouldn't get sued and so that it would be a better representation of the school board. And it was changed to a very east-west district that also includes Plantation and Sunrise, which makes it very diverse. And we have worked together across the district with diverse groups of individuals to deliver and make change for our students. So I am big on diversity. I kind of subscribe to the adaptive problem solving model that's talked a lot about Professor Heifetz at Harvard Kennedy School, where you get experts and people with different backgrounds and opinions together, and you solve the world's problems together. I think sometimes our elected officials singly, take on a hero complex when the problems that we're trying to address are too large for just one individual to try to resolve and handle on their own.
Okay, Dr. Osgood, there was a major split, major controversy within the Senate Democratic caucus last April, the caucus that you'd be joining if you got elected. They threw out one Broward senator, Gary Farmer, and they replaced Farmer with another Broward senator, Lauren Book. Did you agree with this decision, and would you have supported it if you were in the Senate at the time?
Steve, I don't know all of the background information to be able to make an intelligent response to that. Okay. I know that it happened. I don't know, what happened publicly, what happened behind the scenes. I don't know. But I will say that whoever the leadership is in the Senate, I will do my best to work with that person to get policies put in place and to advocate for the people of Broward County.
Miss Edden, how about you? Did you agree or disagree with the decision to get rid of Gary Farmer and replace him with Lauren Book?
No, I did not agree or to disagree with it because, again, I was not privy to what the evidence that they had, or what the reason was. I speak in that term. Because if I can't see the documentations or know what they were dealing with, I wouldn't be able to make that decision. But I did want to say something. I keep hearing, let me just say this, please. I keep hearing some people say, when you're not in office, you don't know. Well, without people like us, you wouldn't be in office to be able to serve. And I had a district where my opponent, you represented us when you got elected the first time over Tory Austin. And we were cut out of your district. So you haven't represented us. And the soundboard from Ernestine Price is that you made a statement that you didn't want to represent anyone from 19th Street to the State Farmers Market, and now you want to come in and represent my district. The District 33 is bigger than 6 Trump. It's bigger than Ricketts Middle School that has roof fell down. Those things need to be addressed. So when you say the district, it ain't about being an elected official, because people like me, I made policy for Alcee Hastings, Robert Wexler, and I was not elected to do it, but I was the person they called to make sure they can find out some of the things they needed to do to bring changes in this community, along with E. Pat Larkins and many others. So to say we don't know what we're doing, or saying to say what you're not doing, we know when we call you to our district and you're not present, and Blanche Healy came to the school board on March the 10th about an issue, and you made a statement that they don't say anything because they may start a riot. So when you make those statements, don't try to be condescending that, oh, because I'm not in office, I don't understand. I have been a pivotal force throughout this community, and everybody on this board knows it, even Michael Mann, that I have been in civil rights forever. Yes, I have run, and I want to make this statement. If slaves had not run away, we wouldn't be. If we had not run to get things changed, you wouldn't be able to be elected, because people fought so hard to keep us in these places, because Black folks had no representation at all. And now that seats are being advocated, people are not being put in those seats that will be really representing our district, just like the Broward County Commission has changed, and a lot of the districts are being pushed out in areas where will not be able to come back and take those seats. So no, I'm not an elected official, but I voted for you, and you left us blindly with Nora Rupert, who inherited us. And that is something we won't ever forget. So it's not about being an elected official. When you get elected, you come out and tell us what you're going to do, and then you give us the blank check. So that is why I'm running, because I stand on my word.
Let's let Ms. Osgood respond. Let's let Dr. Osgood respond, especially to this point about that you didn't want to represent certain communities.
So not didn't want, we got cut out of the district is what it was. So, and then they're not treated well when they come to.
I'm going to let Dr. Osgood respond, Ms. Edden.
Go ahead.
Steve, you know, it's interesting when you continue to hear, I don't know if it's misunderstanding our lives. Let's just be really candid about this. So I'm a Black school board member. I get elected. I have a district that's the horseshoe of where all the Black people live, maybe to the tune of 70 or 80%. I don't remember the percentage. If I was selfish, it would have been to my advantage to keep that district. It was illegal. It was what you call in redistricting packing, where you put all of the Black people into one district. It is illegal. It is against the law. I personally have relatives that live in the city of Pompano. I am not a person that would ever say, I don't want to represent people from whatever street to whatever street. This kind of changes as we go through these forms. When the March 10th issue came, why would I, as an African-American woman, use a term that the people that look like me are going to start a riot? I find that to be racist. I find it to be insulting. I find it to be condescending. I live in the core of the cis-Trump quarter. I've been Black all my life. I'm very comfortable about being around Black people. I have many friends that are of a different ethnicity, and I'm very comfortable with being around them. I am here to serve the people of Broward County, who gives me permission to serve them with their vote. So Ms. Edden, if you voted for me, I thank you. Anybody else that have voted for me, I thank them. And I'm here to serve the people. That's another reason why I'm going to Tallahassee, to try to get us focused back on people instead of on politics. All of this kind of erroneous rhetoric, it keeps us away from the bigger issue. Right now, our democracy is under attack, and we have to pull together and focus on keeping this country true to its constitution. When we have people in the state that are single-handedly making decisions that are not even considering people. What I just went through with the mask mandate was something I would never imagine that I would have to go through to simply protect students and staff in the Broward County School. So I don't know what all this stuff Ms. Edden is speaking of. It changes every form. It tends to be some anger and aggression toward me. I'm trying to fight for the democracy and move this county forward. I don't have any of those those information. They need to do a little fact checking and look at meetings, and don't say that I said something that I did not say, because you can't lie and slander people's names with misinformation like that. That shows that you like integrity.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I'm
No, that's it, Miss Edden. Miss Edden, I'm not going to let you respond.
lie about you at all. You need to make sure that when you're saying things, Rosalind, that is not my words, because I don't watch you. Okay, I get the calls about you. And to say you're going to Tallahassee, I'm not sure it's going to be you. And if you're going to think that you're going to go up there and change everything the syntax is doing and give a false concept of that, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Nobody's lying about you. Nobody's negative about you.
Dr. Edden, I'm going to try to bring this conversation back on a somewhat higher plane.
Go ahead. Thank you so much.
Dr. Osgood, you said a few minutes ago in response to Dan's question about Perry Thurston, you said, and I quote, that one thing you might do differently is work more aggressively to build across party lines. I'd like to hear you cite an example, just one example of something you think Republicans in Tallahassee have done well, or an area where you think you could find common ground with Republicans.
Where I think I could find common grounds with Republicans is helping them to understand education, for example. When they approach education and take dollars and vouchers away to private schools, I don't think they clearly understand that traditional public education is the only option for many minority students. To talk about if we have to coexist with charter schools, how we can, if we have to do that, it should be done in a way where all of the rules are the same. The requirements for the educators, the principals are in line. And the board is a board that is elected by the people to govern those schools, and everything is done in the sunshine. When I think about the Republicans and what they have done well, I think early on there was some, attempts to try to have a presence in, some of the Black communities through working with people on the other side of the aisle. But then it just became an all-out dictatorship. It became something where you saw people like this Surgeon General get appointed who, has been known to give erroneous information about healthcare issues, who issued this horrible opinion, this horrible ruling to the school board about masks. And then to put the icing on the cake, refused to even wear a mask in the office of someone that was asking him because they had a medical condition. So I think that we always have to have hope that when we have elected officials, that we can have conversations. And those conversations might not initially change anything, but staying focused on people and helping people and trying to make the world a better place. If we say that we believe in America and the nation, our Constitution, our preamble, I think that always gives us a common place to start. If we're going to have life, liberty, and justice and freedom for all, then we have to continue to work at that. And being an African American female, I have seen a lot of progress. I do feel like we are regressing at this time, but having conversations and helping people understand different lived experiences is really how we're going to get to a place where we have a nation that's representative of all. I think about a lot of our immigrant brothers and sisters that are now a part of this great nation. We have to interact with them, listen at them, understand their needs, understand their differences, and see how we can use those differences to create a unity that's going to help us build a loved community. So I'm refusing to give up, Steve. I have hope. You know, I don't know if that's my faith element, but I just believe that we can come together and do a better job about representing all of the people of Broward County and not just a small group. For example, school board races are nonpartisan. So you work with both parties. Once you elected to a position, your party affiliation does not allow you to not represent the people that's of another political party.
Right. Okay. I had one more question for Miss Edden I wanted to ask, because you did mention it in this interview briefly, and it's on your financial disclosure as a candidate. You have a company called Edden Consulting, and I wanted to ask you what kind of company that is, and who are Edden Consulting's clients?
I've had a consulting business since 2001. It was formed because when I reached out when people went to inner city neighborhoods, I didn't live over here at the time. When the individuals in the inner city, they needed representation. I do EEOC case filings for the commission. I represented them in the school board doing labor issues when you didn't have to be an attorney, administrative hearings. That's what we do. I advocated for students. I'm sorry, I'm outside, so it's kind of hot. I advocated for students to have their rights restored. You know, in the school system, I've done expungements and ceilings, and I use my company to do that based on consulting. I also assisted with doing labor issues, like not just labor, like say divorces, anything that's within a court system. I would do the documents for that to be able to have people to go to court, whether it's a divorce or is evictions or dealing with anything that was required me to show face as a criminal attorney. And that's what it was. It was put together along with I had a educational business called Learning for Enrichment Institution. And I formed that because students in the school system needed help with FCATs. I saw that my children living in a certain neighborhood, they had privy to having people to help them to prepare for testing and those things. And I wanted to give back to the inner city neighborhood. So that's why the business was formed. And the consulting services is what we deal with. We deal with political issues. We deal with any type of policies. Or if I had to represent anybody in any type of setting, I would use that business to do so. So it's a wide range of things that we do. I even represented in Washington, D.C. with the UAC, the Unemployment Commission, to help people to acquire their unemployment when they were told that they couldn't get it. So those are some things I did under that particular company, and also it was convenient for me because at the time my late son, I lost my son in February, Trey Williams. He had acquired cancer after leaving Hampton and going to Bethune-Cookman, and I needed to take a leave from my present job, which was with the federal government at the time. And I utilized the services of saying, let me help people this way while I can still help my son who was at Sloan Kettering in New York City. So it was to give back to the community that was lost.
Oh, thank you very much. Ms. Edden, if you're successful and go to the Florida Senate, you'll be voting on so many different pieces of education legislation. And I want to ask you about one. Ron DeSantis has proposed abolishing the FSA, the Florida statewide assessment, and replace it with something called progress monitoring. Do you know about this proposal, and what's your opinion of it?
Well, I have a master's in management education programs. Again, I did work in education, informed charter school. My opinion on it, the first one I saw, this was during the COVID, that he proposed to get rid of that particular standardized testing. I thought it would be a favorable thing at the time because I haven't read about anything new. But when I read about it, it was something that would give the teachers more standing to help the students, to give them another lift in being able to apply. I thought it was a good thing. Any new proposals between the last few months, I have not seen that. But during COVID, I know that he did propose something to make changes, and I was in agreement with also the superintendent in Miami that also liked it. The governor had said about this new way of making sure children obtain a sustainable education. because the dropout prevention rate when I was there was astronomical.
Okay.
And we need
Okay, let me ask Dr. Osgood. Dr. Osgood, what's your opinion about abolishing FSA and the changes he wants to make there?
Well, Steve, we have decades of data that show us that high stakes testing does not work. All school districts already do progress monitoring. It's a part of what you have to do as a school district on a regular basis already, because you want to monitor the progress of the students to see if you're making learning gains or not. What we oftentimes do is rate students based on grade levels. So for example, if I'm a first grade teacher and I have a student that comes to me and that student is 2 grade levels behind, if I move that student 1 grade level, that is a learning gain, but I still don't get adequate points on my examination or my evaluation because the student is not on grade level. So I certainly think progress-based monitoring is a move in the right direction. It's what school districts already do. I would just like to see the Department of Education and the governor work more with school districts. You know, when we look at this county, we have a plethora of school districts and they're not all synonymous. So you have different needs in different school districts and areas. I think giving school districts more autonomy to have more Montessori programs where you group students by level and not by age, different magnet programs. For example, when I came to Broward County School Board, District 5 had 12 F schools, and they were under state sanction to be shut down. Mr. Runcie and the staff, along with the board, began to do these school turnaround options. And it was really difficult at first to get the community to buy into it. But the one thing that we knew is that we could not allow the schools to continue to fail. The graduation rate was around 63% at that time. Right now, with charter schools included, it's around 83%. Without charter schools, it's around 90. So what we did is we put a high-performing high school in the city of Lauderhill. They wanted a high school. They didn't have one. So we put in a high school and we phased it in where we had 25 students the first year that was freshmen, and we went on. Those students gave up traditional sports to be in this high-performing high school. It became a 6 through 12 where they take, you know, so many AP courses, so many honor courses, and we've had 100% graduation of the students in that school. So when you do progress-based monitoring, you know where kids are, but you have to have a level of expectation in order to challenge kids, even with our kids that are high performing. Just because I'm an A student doesn't mean that I can't grow or I can't do better. So I think when we start looking at progress monitoring, looking at learning gains instead of level, if I'm making A's, I'm an A student, it does not mean that I should go through a whole school year and not have a learning gain or not have increased knowledge.
Okay, thank you. Let me just open the floor to Dan Sweeney and Martin Dykeman again if you had another question.
Just one more for Dr. Osgood. I don't know the answer to this question. Perhaps you do. Have there been other school board members ever elected to the legislature from Broward County?
Oh, yes. Miss Robin Balderman was, and she was Legislator of the Year this year. Countywide school board
according to who? I don't want to slag Robin Bartleman. I just want to know who said that.
Let me clarify. It was the Florida School Board Association because they presented the award in our meeting. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
That brings up a good point. And I'm not going to remember all the details, but Dr. Osgood, the Florida School Boards Association has just withdrawn as a member of the National School Board Association. Was that why did they do that? And did you support that decision?
Well, I can tell you I have participated in the Florida School Board Association around policy stuff. I've been more involved in the Progressive School Board Association. When I came to the board, I had experience with being an executive director where I had gone through a lot of the governance trainings with the Community Foundation of Broward So I would choose to spend my time in school and with kids more so with the Florida School Board Association. And I know that there has been this great fallout around some racial issues. I don't know all the details. As you guys can imagine, the board here and myself personally as the chair, I've had to spend a lot of time trying to navigate us through COVID, the mask mandate, a lot of times talking to different medical professionals, just trying to get a better knowledge, a better understanding. So the day-to-day actions of the Broward County School Board for the last 7 or 8 months has kept me more occupied than usual, that I might not be as up to date on the Florida School Board Association and what, those organizations are doing.
Okay. Ms. Edden, I don't think we have a questionnaire from you, and we really would like one. If you can finish one.
Receive one, so you would have to confirm the email that you sent it to, because I'm on a Zoom, and I don't know if it's geared toward just education or what when you're asking me these questions. So I'm a little pushback on that. I really am, because I searched for your questionnaire the last couple of days because someone called me and told me that you all were having a Zoom about the state Senate 33, and we all looked in every one of my emails, and I did not receive. Therefore, it makes me almost ill prepared. So I'm speaking to you on the cuff of giving you a response to something that seems like it's geared toward education. And that would
Ms. Edden, no attempt was made to exclude you from this.
I don't care.
Let's discuss this for a moment, and to be sure that we're on the same page. The email address that I used to send all the invitations to you was the email address you provided in your candidacy papers. That is t_edden@hotmail.com.
That is correct. I searched it. I'm being honest. I searched it because I got a call about it. And I said, well, we were trying to find out who to call on your editorial board or whomever to find out where it went. But it's okay. What I'll do is I'll go back again if you want to resend it. While I'm standing here, I'll be able to have access to it and submit it to you, because, again, I want to say this. Each and every one of you now,
Well,
Martin, turn your microphone off if you wouldn't mind.
it's not me, it's someone else. I'm standing in, it's someone else. It's not mine.
I know. I'm sorry. If you want to repeat the last thing you said, Ms. Edden, I don't think any of us heard it. So.
Okay. Let me just say, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What I said was, normally when the Sun Sentinel does not receive a questionnaire from a candidate, they normally either call you or make some type of contact. I got this information while I was in church yesterday that there's supposed to be a Zoom with you all, and I began searching and had my team to search. We found nothing from you all about a Zoom. And I felt that this puts me, it doesn't put me in a bad light because I know my issues. I've done this with you all before, but it puts me in a situation where I'm a little ill prepared, not knowing what you're asking me on certain things and have not had the opportunity to review your questionnaire. But I'm fine with it, because whether I get your endorsement or not, I'm still the best qualified candidate to serve in the state of Florida without any type of innuendos or anything to keep me from doing that. And when we have allowed people to serve as our elected officials, and you say you want to stay there, you love our children and people, and this is the same thing my opponent, Perry Thurston, told us, that he wanted to stay in his seat. And I know him personally more than anyone else on this Zoom here. And then you advocate your seats and you leave us without a semblance of representation. And now the board is going to be replaced. And yes, I did put in for the race as well as gubernatorial appointments, because I felt like you weren't there for the right reasons and you want to go somewhere else. And you can do that, but serve the people and don't leave us blind. So me not having this questionnaire, and I'm saying this because even in working in law, the thing is, if I go to court and I have not gotten anything from my other side, whether it's discovery or what have you, I will be ill prepared. I'm not totally ill prepared, but I'm pushed back the fact that I did not get a questionnaire and I did not get anything of the sort. I got this from a third party telling me today, even when I was out, that I needed to be on your Zoom. That came from somebody totally different than you all. And I ended up getting the link from them. So it's nothing against your organization, but I've been doing this with you all for many years, about 3 times. Okay. And I'm rerunning because why shouldn't I run? I just ran.
All right, well, thank you. Sorry that happened. We still would like to get your questionnaire. In answer to your question or your comment, no, most of the questions on the questionnaire are not about public education. They're about all kinds of things. And so we would like to publish it. We'd like to share it with our readers. A lot of people read our website, and the more people who know about you, perhaps the better off it is for everyone. So
are you to get my questionnaire before you make your determination? Is that
sure?
On that?
Yes. Yes, you have my commitment on that. But I'll send as soon as this call is over with. We are dealing with 8 candidates in 3 special elections in the same week. And that's our issue, not yours. But I did not. All the other, I don't know what happened, but I do know that all the other candidates got the questionnaire. So
they told me about it. They told me about it. 2 of the candidates in the state rep race, 2 of them contacted me and asked me did I get the questionnaire because they had gotten it. I said I hadn't gotten it, and I researched it. But it's no here nor there. As long as you give it to me and I'm able to submit, so that you can publish it or make your decision in regards to. Would endorse. I wouldn't. It doesn't matter to me. I have to still do grassroots works, and I have to be the foot soldier that I am. So that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Okay, we're coming up on an hour, and so I know you're both very busy people. I want to let both of you make sort of a closing statement that you might make to a group of voters about why you're the best candidate for this race. I'm going to just make a judgment call here. I'm going to let Ms. Edden have the last word. So, Dr. Osgood, you have the floor for about 90 seconds to tell us why you're the best candidate.
Thank you. I have served Broward County faithfully for the last 2 decades as the CEO of Mount Olive Development Corporation and as a Broward County School Board member. While being a school board member, I have learned a lot about education and other sectors of our community. And I feel that being in Tallahassee on the state level, to have an opportunity to be a part of the lawmaking process before it gets to the local level would be beneficial to our community because I will fight and I will advocate for them. I think my work here has shown this community that I'm committed to them, that I'm going to serve them. I did not hesitate or back down at all from the governor when it came to implementing the mask mandate to protect our students in school. I'm the only one in this race that has experience working with other policymakers in the community to get tangible results. I'm the only one in this race that has experience fighting the governor. I have a proven track record, not of things that I'm delusional about or things that I'm speculating about, but things that have absolutely been accomplished, not with just me single-handedly, but with me working with this community. I believe in this community, and I believe together as we've made changes in education to turn around 12 failing schools, we will work together to make changes on the state level to protect our democracy. And thank you guys for this time, and thank you for following up with me. I didn't get my questionnaire in till 3 a.m. this morning, but sometimes in these races, people play games not to submit the questionnaires, and it's not fair to those of us that's going to stay up to 3 a.m. and do the work because we respect the integrity of the process and do what you ask us to do.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Edden, 90 seconds. You have a closing statement. Thank you.
First of all, my name is Terry Ann Williams Edden, and the reason I'm set apart, I was not put in a race by Chevron Jones, as this candidate has been, and I did not play a game about a questionnaire. I'm too savvy and educated, and I got too much going on in my life to want to do such a thing, even if I visit the cemetery. And what sets me apart from my opponent is you were put in a race by Chevron Jones because you want to coddle a seat. Second of all, that is not who I am. I have worked in this community for over 30 plus years, advocating for people, and this is what I've done. Because I have met with law enforcement and their sheriffs to make a difference in my community, to make sure my young men and women are not just arrested, on frivolous claims. That is a process of what I've done. I worked in the educational system to make sure that when people are let go from their jobs, that it's not with it has to be with just cause and not just because you don't like someone. And not only have I done that, the promise program that you are professing, Ms. Osgood, that started with me. That is a process where people have to start from the bottom and you get your claim from the top. And when you want to insinuate that I would take a shot and say I did not turn in my questionnaire, says a lot about who you are. First of all, you have been the same person. And it sets me apart from you because I don't tell other candidates not to get in the race, to stay safe and lie to them and come back. So the reason why people should support me in this candidacy, because I have nothing to lose in doing what I do. They can gain from my ability to reform our health care, expand our medication, Medicaid for our seniors. They can have economic opportunity, helping our businesses to get through the small business administrations. You're talking about massing. That's the only thing you have is staying up against that. And of course, everyone needs to be vaccinated, but they have a choice because we do not live in a dictatorship. And also what sets me apart from you is that I have worked with teachers. I've worked with students. I put Parton Johnson at Blanche Eden when he didn't have a way in. And not only did I do that, the advocacy of a civil rights leader makes the pathway for other people. And in doing that, what we do is this. If slaves did not run and keep running away, Miss Osgood, you would not be able to sit at a lunch counter if Dr. King or Malcolm didn't do what they do. And that makes me a better candidate than you because I believe in healthcare reform as well. I believe in the educational standards of what we need and not just have our students to just test, to just come to school to test just to graduate. When they come out, they cannot even get into a global economy where they'll be able to stand against others. That is what I've done. And to make sure our wages are increased, not just in the school board level where the board is fighting to give them 3.1, which is not even 1%, and they're asking their union to give them 3.5%. So when you're a champion for your teachers, you don't say they agree to teachers, and you have said this in the past. You have grown. My opponent has grown, I guess, in the the last years. But it's a difference between me and you. So never insinuate I would not want to do a questionnaire. I've always been there.
Thank you.
Master's program before you got there. You took a feeder program to get the doctorate.
Thank you, Terry.
Insinuation is false statement.
Thank you for your statement. Thank you both for your participation today. That was the last word. Best of luck to both of you. Thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye.